8 Sinister Corner Store Encounters. Discover the spine-chilling truth behind these haunted tales. The corner store was a graveyard of forgotten dreams. Its flickering neon signs screamed desperation. On cold autumn nights, the once warm scent of fresh bread now rotted into something foul, mingling with the stench of despair. Emily, a single mother in her late 30s, toiled away, shelving stale products while her teenage son, Jake, worked the cash register. Behind them, shadows lurked, sinister and watchful. The store's familiar creaks and moans had turned into whispers of dread, as if the aisles themselves were plotting something wicked. Tonight felt different. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, a chill slithered down Emily's spine. She caught glimpses of odd customers, their eyes darting, bodies tensed as they lingered too long. There was Mr. Rowe, her friendly neighbor. His smile faltered under the harsh lights, something dark weaving through the corners of his grin. Emily felt a knot tighten in her gut. What was happening in Maplewood? Suddenly, lights flickered ominously and then succumbed to darkness. An abyss of silence swallowed the store whole. Emily's heart raced. "Jake," she called out, desperate. But the darkness was thick, suffocating, and when the electricity flickered back on, he was gone. An icy wave of panic washed over her, pushing her instincts to chase shadows. She dashed into the abandoned neighborhoods, running through narrow alleyways where revulsion clung to the air. Deep in the labyrinth of Maplewood's despair, strange symbols began to crawl across the walls, just beyond her eyesight. They felt familiar yet terrifying, as old as the town itself. With every corner she turned, dread wrapped tighter around her heart. "Jake!" she cried out, her voice breaking. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The truth was peeling back, layer by layer, revealing the festering darkness that surged beneath Maplewood's normalcy. As she stumbled through the oppressive night, an unsettling realization gripped her. Something sinister had its claws deep into their community. Trust evaporated as she found more neighbors' strange behaviors, their faces twisting into masks of horror, like shadows overtaking their humanity. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, a shape darted behind an old brick wall. It shouldn't have felt familiar, but it did. Emily's heart thudded. Was it Jake? The tension crackled in the air, palpable, as if the very walls of the city were breathing with anticipation. As she approached, the figure shifted, a grin that felt more like a deception than a welcome. The shadows deepened around her, closing in like the tightening grip of despair. Emily stood at the cusp of revelation, her heart hammering in her chest. Would she dare to confront the darkness that called this place home? Or would she retreat into the fragile safety of what she thought she knew? The store loomed behind her, a hollow shell of safety waiting to swallow her whole, leaving Emily teetering on the brink of a truth that could shatter everything she held dear. The figure stepped into the pale glow of a nearby street lamp, and Emily's breath hitched. It was Jake, but something wasn't right. His eyes were wide, but not with fear. There was an unsettling calm behind them, a dull sheen that warped his familiar warmth. It sent a visceral jolt through her, cold as ice. "Mom!" he shouted, a voice strangely cheerful yet hollow. "I was waiting for you." The words echoed in her mind, a sharp contrast to the frantic pounding of her heart. "Jake, are you okay?" She stepped closer, her instincts screaming at her to flee. Yet, the maternal bond rooted her feet to the ground, even as dread pulled at her. He tilted his head, the grin stretching wider, unnaturally so. "You have to see this. They've been talking about you." A tremor of fear traced her spine. "Who's been talking?" Jake's gaze flickered behind her. "The others. They know what you've been hiding." Panic surged within her. The others? Were they the odd customers? The neighbors? Something sinister was lurking in the shadows of this place, and it was closing in. She felt it, the weight of 1,000 eyes, watching, waiting. "Let us go home," she urged, stepping backward, trying not to show how rattled she truly was. As she turned, a group of neighbors emerged from the darkness, their faces eerily blank, eyes dulled. Their movement was coordinated, a hive mind of slow, deliberate steps. One of them, Mrs. Highsmith, formerly the town's sweet grandmother, now stood with a twisted smile that sent chills racing up Emily's arms. "Emily," she sang, her voice dripping with saccharine malice. "We're so glad you could join us. You must meet the rest of the family." "Family?" Emily's voice came out in a whisper, clenching her fists to keep them from trembling. Jake moved closer, his smile unchanging. "Don't be afraid, Mom. They've been waiting for you." She stumbled in retreat, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest, until her back hit the cold brick wall. The shadows seemed to writhe around her, consuming the light of the street lamp. Each neighbor stepped forward, their movements smooth, unyielding bodies that no longer belonged to the people she once knew. "Join us," they whispered in unison, the sound a sickening melody that twisted through the air like smoke. Desperation clawed at her throat. "No! Get away from me!" She shoved through the crowd, ignoring their murmurs, eyes darting for an escape. But the maze of Maplewood entangled her like a spiderweb, every turn leading her deeper into the nightmare. Shadows danced around her, laughter echoing off the brick walls, each one laced with madness. In the corners of her vision, she glimpsed their true selves, darker, grimmer forms hunched and waiting, wraiths barely contained by their human shells. What had changed in this town? As she raced through the shadows, the answers gnawed at her sanity. The truth was close, clawing at the edges of her mind. Suddenly, she spotted a small child standing alone, staring straight at her with vacant eyes. It was the last thing she'd expected to see in this horror. Emily paused, her heart thundering. "Have you seen Jake?" She called out, voice breaking. The child didn't answer. Instead, they simply pointed deeper into the gloom. The gesture was slow, deliberate, urging her to follow. With no other option and fear of the group behind her forcing her toward the unknown, she stepped forward into the darkness, heart racing. Who was leading her? What awaited her at the end of this path? As she ventured deeper, the air thickened with dread, closing in like a shroud. Would she finally uncover the truth about her town or find herself lost forever within its haunted heart? Somewhere, in the distance, laughter echoed, twisted and cruel, and as she pressed on, one chilling thought consumed her: the darkness had other plans for Emily. What awaited her in the depths of Maplewood? Each step felt heavier than the last as Emily followed the child through the winding streets of Maplewood, a dense fog cloaking her surroundings. The laughter she had heard earlier hung in the air like a ghostly echo, menacing and strange. "Where are you taking me?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The child continued to walk, their small figure eerily still, framed by the murky light spilling from the faded street lamps. Goosebumps prickled on Emily's skin. Something was very wrong. The houses loomed closer, their windows dark and unreadable, as if hiding secrets just out of reach. The fingers of dread curled around her heart. Each house looked like a page out of a forgotten story, whispering tales of sorrow and despair. A sharp turn led them into an alley, more constricting than the last, shadows pooling at their feet. At the end of the alley, they reached an old, dilapidated storefront with peeling paint and an unmarked door. It was out of place, a solitary reminder of a time long gone, and the child turned to her, their face expressionless. "Go in," they said, voice devoid of any warmth. "No." She shook her head, swallowing hard. "I need to find Jake." The child's eyes seemed to glint with something. Was it amusement? "You'll find what you seek in there," they replied flatly, before walking away, disappearing into the dark like a shadow retreating into the walls. Emily hesitated, fear wrapping around her like a noose. The door stood between her and the unknown, groaning on its hinges as if tantalized by the prospect of her entry. She took a steadying breath, heart pounding against her ribcage, and reached for the knob. It was cold and slick beneath her palm. Inside, the store was dimly lit, flickering bulbs casting strange shapes that danced across the dusty floor. The shelves were crammed with jars of ominous contents, some filled with dark liquids, while others held what looked like twisted remnants of a past life. There was a strange smell, like wet earth and rotting wood, that clung to the air. "Jake?" she called out, her voice echoing in the claustrophobic space. No answer came. Just the rustle of something unseen moving deeper within. Taking a trembling step forward, Emily's eyes were drawn to a dusty mirror hanging askew on the wall. Reflected in it was a figure, a glimpse of herself, but distorted. Her face was gaunt, eyes wide with frantic terror, but behind her, something stirred. She spun around. The store seemed empty save for the shadows. But her heart leapt into her throat when she glimpsed movement in the corner of her eye. From the darkness emerged a familiar figure, Jake, his grin as unsettling as before, eyes still hollow yet somehow more vivid under the flickering light. "Mom, you found me." He rushed forward, and she felt an instinct to hug him, hold him tight. But as he drew nearer, his expression morphed, shifting into something malicious, the grin stretching impossibly wide. "They're waiting for you," panic surged. The room twisted as the shelves began to rattle like a storm breaking. Things were breaking free, objects she couldn't identify, fleeing from the oppressive darkness that permeated the air. "Stay away from me!" she screamed, backing away, her breath quickening. The items formed a wall of darkness around Jake, lurking just beyond reach. "Don't you want to join your family?" he asked, voice low, almost slithering. The shadows pulled at him, coaxing him like a puppet. With a surge of defiance, Emily turned and fled deeper into the store. Each step took her further into a netherworld that felt alive, the atmosphere thickening around her. It was a labyrinth of her worst nightmares. "I'm not your family," she shouted, desperate. The shadows quivered, as if in reply. Dark laughter filtered through the walls, a cacophony of voices, overlapping and sinister. Emily knew she needed to find a way out before the shadows settled in. But the darkness was closing in, whispering her name, promising a truth she couldn't comprehend. What had become of Jake? What of the town she once knew? The shadows stretched toward her, eager and relentless, and as her back hit another wall, she realized, escaping was only the beginning. Then, from the depths of the store, a new figure emerged, a face she thought she recognized, twisted by the dark. Was it friend or foe? The answer haunted her as the store's front door slammed shut behind her. Would she find the strength to uncover the truth about her family and the horrors lurking within Maplewood, or would she slip into the embrace of the darkness forever? Emily stumbled backward, her heart racing like a wild animal. The dim light flickered again, and the figure emerged more fully from the shadows. It was a woman, her mother, or at least someone who looked like her, but twisted, distorted by the dark like an old photograph fading into nothingness. "Emily," the figure crooned, voice dripping with sweetness that curdled in the air. "I've been waiting for you. You shouldn't have come alone." "You're not her," Emily gasped, terror gripping her throat. She felt lightheaded, the air thick with darkness that seemed to breathe around her. "Oh, but I am," the shadowed woman replied, stepping closer, revealing deeper cracks in her skin, like dried earth splitting open. "Don't you remember? I've always been here, deep in the fabric of this town. We've always been connected." Emily's pulse thundered in her ears. "Jake! Where's Jake?" she cried, searching the dark corners of the store for any sign of her son. The figure laughed, a sound like the breaking of glass. "He's safe for now. But you must choose, dear. Your heart desires him, doesn't it?" Her mother's eyes glimmered, reflecting twisted memories like shards of broken mirrors. "All you have to do is stop fighting." A low rumble shook the building, and Emily felt the ground beneath her feet pulse like a heartbeat. She shook her head violently, straining against the magnetic pull drawing her to the figure in front of her. No. I want to believe you. Believe? The woman's smile widened into a gaping maw. Don't you see? Belief is power. It can save or destroy. Deep inside, you know what you have to do. The shadows thickened around Emily, twisting and turning like living things. She could hear whispers now, faint murmurs beckoning her deeper into the abyss. Join us, Emily, they called her name in a chorus of voices that felt both familiar and sinister. From deep in the store, she heard Jake's laughter again, light, innocent, yet tinged with something twisted that made her skin crawl. Mom, it's fun here. You'll love it. Emily's resolve started to crumble, swallowed by the darkness. Images of her family, once comforting, turned grotesque and alien. She felt the weight of her grief, the desperation of wanting to hold Jake one last time, but was it truly him? The walls closed in with an intensity that made her breath hitch. She stumbled sideways, desperately searching for an escape, when something cold brushed against her ankle. A jar tipped over on a nearby shelf, shattering, the sound echoing like a scream through the store. Come on, Emily. The figure of her mother urged, stretching an impossibly long arm towards her. Embrace your destiny. No. Emily yelled, panic fueling her strength. She pivoted, toward the store's back, glancing only once at the nightmarish figure that was once her mother. I'm not yours. Tearing through the aisles, her eyes darted at the jars lining them, their sinister contents glowing in the feeble light. Fear propelled her forward. Jake! I'm coming! She screamed, forcing her way past the overwhelming shadows, but the laughter grew louder, more aggressive, wrapping around her like barbed wire. The whispers became shrieks, filling her mind until she felt she might drown in them, then she saw at the door to the back room. Light spilled out beneath it, beckoning like a lifeline. She rushed toward it, hands trembling, the shadows clawing at her heels. Emily pushed the door open and stumbled into the room. The air was different here, fresh yet electric with tension. A long table was set in the dim light, covered with faded photographs and dust-covered relics, memories laid bare, and at the end of the table, her son sat, a shadow of his former self, eyes sparkling with mischief, a spider cradled in his hands. Oh, Mom. You made it, he said cheerfully, but the cheerful facade slipped, revealing a glee that chilled her heart. Now we can play forever. The door slammed shut behind her, sealing her fate within the room where nightmares wore the face of family. Emily's breath came in gasps as the reality crashed in. What they wanted was more than she could give. The laughter, once sweet, now sliced through her fear like a knife. She had to act before it was too late. Would she uncover what they truly sought from her, or would she, too, become just another shadow lurking in Maplewood? Emily's heart thundered painfully against her ribs, the familiar laughter of Jake now tainted with something darker. The shadow of his childish glee morphed into a nightmarish echo, wrapping around her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Play forever, Jake repeated, but the words hung in the air like a deadly promise. Emily felt a rush of desperation. Jake! Please! Her voice quavered, ricocheting off the bare walls. We need to get out of here. Why would I want to leave? He asked, tilting his head, the wicked glint in his eyes intensifying. This place is so much fun. Everyone's happy here, Mom, even Grandma. Panic gripped her. Grandma? She hadn't thought of her mother in years, banished by the memories of loss and grief. No. You don't understand. Emily stepped closer, determined to break through to her son. This isn't real. It's a trick. Jake giggled, the sound sharp and alien. But it is real. Can't you feel it? The power? The magic? He waved his small hand, and the shadows in the room wriggled as if they were alive, dark tendrils whispering sweetly in her ears. Join us, Mom. You can be like us." The air crackled with energy, and Emily felt as if the room itself was pulsating, a living entity feeding off her dread. She could see now, scattered on the table, remnants of others who had come before, broken family photos, mementos, all coated in dust and secrets. Each item vibrated with sorrow, stretching into the darkness that flickered at the edges of her peripheral vision. "No. I want to be part of this." She turned to the door, but it was locked tight, the metal handle devoid of warmth. She banged against it, desperate and afraid. "Someone help me." A voice drifted from the shadows, an echo that chilled her like ice. "Help is a fragile thing, Emily. What would you sacrifice to save your child?" The figure her mother slithered into view once more, her twisted form exuding a sinister allure, as if the shadows themselves were forming her features. Emily flung herself around, her choice crystal clear. "I would give anything," she shouted, a cry laced with both agony and determination. "I would give my life to save him." The laughter swelled, mixing with the whispers of the shadows, filling the space like a haunting symphony. "Even your soul?" her mother crooned, her mouth stretching into a grotesque smile. "Would you trade your very existence for his happiness?" Emily hesitated, visions of the horrors her mother had promised flashing through her mind. She recognized that hesitation now, the same flickering doubt. Jake must have felt the pull of the darkness that promised everything. "Mom?" Jake's voice wavered, suddenly small. "What are you saying?" "No." The fear welling up inside her ignited. "You are not him. You can't be." She turned to face the shadows, her heart racing. "I want to let you take him." The shadows lunged, grasping at her, wrapping around her limbs like serpents, pulling her in. She fought against them, pulling the energy from the darkness itself, a defiance born from desperation. She'd have to liberate her son from this darkness, this evil masquerading as family. "Jake! Look at me!" she yelled, forcing her gaze to meet his. "We can fight this together. We can find a way out." But the spark in his eyes dimmed, and the smile faltered. "Mom, I don't want to go," he whined, clutching his spider tighter, its legs twitching ominously as it crawled up his arm. "Why can't you just join us?" Time felt suspended, as Emily teetered on the edge of despair and hope. In that fleeting moment, she understood the weight of her decision. She could either save her son, or lose herself completely to the darkness. As the shadows surged forward, wrapping tighter, she felt the energy boil within her, swirling with desperation. "I will fight. For you, Jake." Gathering her last reserve of strength, Emily lunged towards the twisted figure of her mother, prepared to confront the part of her that would stop at nothing to trap them both forever in this nightmare. But as her hands closed around the figure's throat, the room erupted in a blinding flash, consuming everything in a whirl of light and darkness. When the light began to fade, would either of them remain unchanged? Where would they be when the dust settled? Emily's breath caught in her throat as the blinding light dimmed, revealing a twisted landscape, a warped reflection of the room they had just been in. Shadows writhed, now split into dark figures that darted like fish in murky water. The chill of the air felt like ice on her skin, sending shivers racing down her spine. "Jake!" she shouted, desperate to find him. The room shifted, walls bent as if the building itself were alive, pulsating in rhythm with her rising dread. "Where are you?" The laughter returned, echoing through the distorted space. It was no longer the innocent giggle of her boy, it had morphed into something cruel, mocking her as it bounced off nondescript corners. "Play forever, Mom." They chorused, each word dripping with taunting glee. A heartbeat later, the laughter ceased. In the dead silence that followed, Emily's heart pounded heavier than ever. The shadows fell into place, revealing her mother's grinning face lingering just outside her reach, eyes twinkling with dark delight. "Did you think you could escape me so easily?" Her mother's voice slithered through the air, wrapping around Emily. The shadows shimmered, coiling close, obscuring each exit, each possibility of flight. "Get away from me!" Emily screamed. She dashed toward the nearest shadow, only to have it recede like water meeting the shore, teasing, mocking her. "This is where it begins, Emily," her mother said, drifting closer, each movement radiating cold. "Time and space bend here. You can't hope to leave without your son. He is part of this now." As dread seeped deeper, Emily spun around, terrified of what she might find. "Jake!" she cried again. Each unanswered call was a weight dragging her under, and with every beat of her heart, the shadows seemed to pulse tighter around her. Then she caught sight of him. He stood at the far end of the room, clutching his spider. But where once there was innocence, now there was an unsettling calm. Jake's gaze was distant, his smile almost fixed, like a doll propped up on a shelf. "Mom!" Jake called out, voice bright yet tinged with something unsettling, drawing closer. "Look! We can play together now." Emily's stomach dropped. He was not the boy she knew, he was a marionette dancing on strings pulled by a darker force. "No, Jake. Come to me. Fight it." But all at once, shadows surged, a wall of darkness that cut her off from him. The room swelled with chaos, a symphony of howls and whispers urging her to give in. The floor beneath her trembled, the walls contorted as if they wanted to swallow her whole. "Join us!" The echoes urged, voices layered with the agony of those lost, those who had traded their souls for eternal play. The walls brimmed with memory's frantic faces, cries of despair belonging to those who had entered but never returned. Emily's fear twisted into resolve. "I will not abandon you, Jake!" she screamed. The darkness shrieked back, not in pain, but in anger, building pressure like a storm ready to burst. As she stumbled forward, the shadows began to retreat, as if recognizing her fierce will. "It's not too late to join," her mother hissed, poison seeping from her words. "You could be happy, forever." "Mom, I choose you." Jake's voice broke through, clearly now, shaking off the haze clouding his mind. "We can go home together." The shadows flickered. A choice loomed like an ominous shadow overhead: remain and lose everything or risk everything to reclaim the boy at the center of this nightmare. Without thinking, Emily reached deep within, summoning the last threads of warmth left in her soul. "Keep fighting, Jake," she declared, feeling the power ripple through her. The air thickened with energy as she focused on him, their bond igniting against the consuming darkness. But as the shadows writhed and recoiled, a new force emerged from the darkness, the seductive silhouette of her mother still tempted, still reaching. "You'll regret this choice, Emily." As the confrontation intensified, Emily pressed forward, determined to shatter the web of evil that bound them. What would happen if they both fell into the chasm of despair? Would they break the curse, or become forever trapped among the haunted whispers? In that moment, she realized the true horror. The power to either save them or lose them both sat trembling on the edge of her decision. Was she strong enough to resist? Would they escape into the light, or be consumed together by the darkness? The tension in the air felt electric as Emily faced the darkness swirling around her. Shadows coiled like snakes, tightening their grip while her heart raced. The oppressive weight of dread bore down like a leaden cloud. Inside her, a fire ignited, one that screamed she couldn't give in, not now, not ever. "Jake!" she cried again, desperation coursing through her. He had to remember. He had to. But each time she called out, the echoes of that taunting laughter spilled from unseen corners, drowning her words in cruel mirth. "Mom, don't you want to play?" It was her own son's voice, but crossed with sinister intonations that made her skin crawl. Jake's form flickered in and out amidst the shadows, like a flame struggling against a gusty wind. Her eyes widened as she tried to reach out, as if physically pulling him back from this precipice of darkness. "Fight it, Jake," she begged. "I'm here. Remember our game? The one where you're the hero?" The shadows seemed to ripple in response. "Hero?" Such a quaint idea, her mother's whisper echoed grotesquely, slipping through the cracks of reality. In this realm, heroes don't exist, only players. With sudden clarity, Emily understood. This was not merely about her, it was a game of wills, a sinister chess match between her mother who had already lost her life and soul and the innocent boy trapped in a twisted game at the center. She felt the heat of despair threatening to drown her resolve, drawing on every fiber of strength. Emily darted forward. Ghostly hands lashed out, grasping for her, but she balled her fists, imagining her love for Jake bursting forth like a shield. The shadows recoiled, hissing. "You may try to save him," her mother spat, "but he is mine." The temperature plummeted, each breath pluming into a fog around her. Emily's resolve hardened. She would not let her mother claim Jake, not again. "Jake!" she called out. "You are my son. You are stronger than this." And then she saw a flicker in his eyes that hinted at the warmth she remembered. She had to coax that spark back into the light, make him see past the fog that engulfed him. "Think of the park," she urged, keeping her voice steady. "The sunshine and your friends. Remember the swings? You always swung higher than everyone else." The shadows screamed in protest, but with each vivid memory she conjured, she saw something shift within Jake. His hollow expression began to break, seems to draw in truth like a moth to flame. "Mom. His voice became clearer, an echo of his true self rising against the murky veil. "Don't let them take you," she shouted, the air thickening with her resolve as she reached for him, half dragged by the darkness. "You are loved. Remember who you are." In response, the shadows howled in rage, surging toward her. They crowded in tight, squeezing the air from her lungs. Emily inhaled sharply, clutching her hands together, envisioning a bright light bursting forth from her love for him. With a ferocious yell, she pushed against them. "I will find you, Jake. We belong together." All at once, the storm of darkness shivered and ceased. A beam of light ripped through the shadows, illuminating the frozen figures in the void. Jake blinked, clarity returning to his gaze. But just as hope sparked, she felt an icy touch wrap around her ankle. The darkness rallied, furious. Emily's stomach sank as she looked down, the shadow ensnaring her. Panic surged through her veins, screaming that time was slipping away. "No! I want to let you take me," she shouted, kicking out. But the darkness hissed, a chorus of anger that echoed within her mind, taunting her. "You are not leaving without paying the price." As the shadows pulled tighter, Emily braced for a final surge. She couldn't let go. The world spun, the shadows tangled in a dance of despair. Would Jake break free, or would she be swallowed whole, trapped within the very darkness she fought against? The pain of her mother's chilling laughter pierced the air as she struggled. A response screamed inside her, what if letting go was the only way to save him, the weight of her choice crashed down. In that moment, uncertainty clawed at her heart, a question igniting her fear. Was she ready to sacrifice it all? The shadows loomed larger, and time froze. Would they emerge into light or be lost forever in an endless twilight? Emily felt herself stretching, caught between the suffocating darkness and the flicker of hope. The icy grip tightened around her ankle, and panic pulsed violently in her chest. She could almost hear Jake's voice drifting away, a whisper drowned by the shadows. "Mom! No!" The word tore from her lips, charged with fierce determination. She focused on the bond they shared. Love. Light. Anything to pierce through the malicious shadows clawing at her spirit. She recalled the late nights when they curled up on the couch, sharing popcorn and laughing over cartoons. "Think of the happy times, Jake," she urged. "Think of the times we fought the monsters together in the backyard." The ground beneath her became a cold, uncertain void as the shadows writhed, 1,000 wretched souls boiling with fury. "Monsters, she says." Her mother cackled. It's only a game, Emily. This is how it was meant to be. Shut up. Emily roared. Every ounce of her being ignited with resolve as she fought against the suffocation of the dark. You don't own him. You don't control us. As the shadows twisted and turned, an unseen force tugged at her, threatening to tear her apart. A pulsing neon memory flickered in her mind, the warmth of a summer day where laughter echoed, where fears were trivial. Jake! You're not just a player. You're my son, remember? But even as she raged, her breaths became quick gasps. The darkness hissed and gnashed, slashing at her resolve. Encircled by the angry shadows, she summoned everything that remained. The lonely hollow within her threatened to consume, but she resisted. After all, love wasn't something to easily extinguish. Then something shifted. Jake's shadows flickered, and beneath the dark veil, a light ignited. A bright spark of recognition flashed through his eyes. Mom! He gasped, help me. In that red-hot moment, Emily dug deeper. You know who you are. You've got strength, baby. She reached out, her arms stretched like a lifeline towards him. An impulsive rush fueled her desperate plea. She could feel his warmth seeping through the cold mess of shadows. Each heartbeat echoed like thunder in her ears, but the darkness shrieked, coiling tighter. You think you can save him? It was her mother's twisted voice, both mocking and mournful. This game demands a price, dear. You should know that by now. Haven't you taken enough? Emily shouted, the intensity of her voice reverberating against the walls of the shadowy void. The walls trembled, and the shadows swirled violently, as if a tempest brewed in the darkness. They shrieked, pulling at her with renewed ferocity. Emily felt her skin crawl, every nerve alight with terror. I have to save him. I have to. And then, a chilling realization crashed into her heart like a wave. What if her mother had a point? The shadows engulfed them both, unyielding and ravenous. Something primal trembled deep inside her. What if the price, what if it's me? She whispered, a horrifying thought shattering through her determination. Could releasing herself mean saving Jake? Could she sacrifice her own essence? Emily. Jake's voice broke through once more, and she glimpsed his frightened face amid the turbulent dark. Mom, don't. You can't. The shadows hissed excitedly, sensing her falter. Emily bit her lip, her heart racing in wild beats. Jake, I'm not afraid. I couldn't lose you. Suddenly, the ground beneath her shifted, the shadows letting go for just a moment, overwrought with discord. The darkness howled, but she felt that flicker of warmth draw near. The tiny fragment of hope flared brighter against the suffocating void. She clenched her fists, unwavering. But a grotesque chill spread through her, a foreboding whisper curling around her mind. Would you trade your soul for his, dear? The question sank in, pulse quickening with a mix of dread and determination. As Emily fought against the pull of darkness, she knew she stood on the edge of a life-or-death decision. Her sacrifice loomed ominously in the aftermath of a shadow-ridden game. Would she dare take the leap into the unknown for her son? Just how far? Would she go to save him from this wretched fate? Unbelievably, time teetered on the brink as the shadows beckoned with a tranquilizing calm. Would she unleash herself to save him, or would they be swallowed whole by eternal darkness? The silence shattered, leaving a nagging ache in the depths of her thoughts as the shadows closed in once more. As she braced for the final revelation, the echo of her mother's laughter rang in her ears, chilling her to the bone. What lay ahead, she couldn't know. All she could do was hold on, tethered in hope, but teetering on despair. Would love be enough? Or would the darkness claim them both? The walls pulsed with an ominous energy, flickering shadows blending into swirling shapes that whispered and taunted. Emily stood at the edge of a dizzying abyss, the darkness seeping through her fingertips. In that moment of profound uncertainty, she saw Jake's face, a pale reflection of dread fading into the swirling shadows. Mom, please. The desperation in his voice struck deep, carving through the ominous veil that suffocated her. "Don't let them take you, don't give in. I won T," she shouted, conviction sounding hollow against the menacing echoes. She could almost feel the shadows laugh, sinister murmurs wrapping around her like an embrace. They thrived on her fear, feeding on every shred of doubt, the chilling laughter of her mother intertwined with the otherworldly dark, each sound sharp as a blade. "You think your love is enough? This isn't a fairy tale, darling. There are no happy endings here." Emily's heart raced. Were they really trapped in this dreadful narrative, manipulated by a wicked force? Or was it all just a cruel game designed to break her down, break them both? The pull of the shadows intensified, as if something colossal lurked just beyond sight, ready to snatch what little hope flickered between her and Jake. "No. It can't end like this," Emily screeched, her voice filled with a raw, primal fear. She tried to picture her boy, his laugh, the way he attacked her with pillows during family movie nights. She dug deep into that love, an unyielding fire against the darkness. Jake's eyes started to glimmer, but the shadows lashed out at him. Emily's pulse quickened, the icy fingers around her ankle squeezing tighter. "Stay with me, Jake. Remember who we are." "Mom," his voice cracked as the shadows closed in. "Concentrate," Emily urged, desperation lacing every syllable. "Remember the backyard. The swings. The games. We laughed. We played." In that moment, Jake's gaze locked onto hers. "I'm here," he declared, fighting against the encroaching darkness. The shadows paused, confused, as if undecided on their next move, but Emily felt that the cost was rising. Each moment of resistance drew them closer to a horrific climax. What if her mother was right? What if the ultimate price was something far worse than her suffering? "Join us, Emily." The shadows hissed, their voices weaving into a grotesque symphony. "Embrace the void." Her breath hitched, the unease rising in her throat. "No. I want to let you take him." But the darkness was relentless, slashing through her defenses like claws. "Choose, Emily." The shadows thundered, forcing her to confront the impossible choice. "Trade your soul, save your son." The ground trembled beneath her, an image flickered in her mind, the crystal-clear faces of Jake and her mother. Tears brimmed at the corners of her eyes, mixing with the rage brewing within. What had the past ever given her except chains? "What if my love is stronger?" she cried defiantly. "I refuse your bargain." And as she screamed that defiance into the swallowing abyss, a burst of energy rippled through the darkness, forcing it back momentarily. The apparition of her mother twisted in pain, confusion etched across the shadowy features. "Emily," it hissed, more wounded specter than menacing figure. That brief flicker of respite brought a cruel clarity. Against all odds, the warmth of Julia's laughter and Jake's smile surged forward, fueling her resolve. "Jake!" she shouted, extending her hand as the darkness howled around her in fury. "Fight back. Remember who you are." But before she could process the consequences of that insistence, another chilling force seized her. Something unfathomable was rising from the depths of the shadows, a dark deity housing twisted anger and a thirst for retribution. "Foolish girl!" it roared, and the very air crackled with its wrath. "You've made a grave mistake." Emily's heart thudded against her rib cage. What had she unleashed by refusing to submit? The fabric of their reality unraveled further, and suddenly, the chasm deepened into an unfathomable darkness beneath them. Hungry and howling, Jake's frightened shout pulled her back. "Mom, look out!" And then, with a spine-chilling rush, the void lunged. Emily braced herself for what lay ahead, heart hammering in concrete dread, knowing that the shadows wouldn't rest until they claimed everything, what awaited them in the pitch-black depths. Would she have the strength to combat what lay hidden within, or would they both become mere echoes in a story that should never have been told? The air crackled with tension as Emily squared her shoulders, heart pounding like a war drum amid the chaos surrounding her. The shadows writhed, groaning in discontent, and deep within the murkiness, she felt the presence of her mother, a twisted phantom of the love she used to know. "You're making this harder than it has to be," her mother's voice slithered from the void, enticing and bitter. "No more," Emily shouted, fueled by the fierce love for her son. The memories leapt before her mind's eye, vibrant recollections of laughter, sunshine, and warm embraces. Trading all that for shadows was a choice she wouldn't make, not with Jake's life at stake. "Jake!" she cried, focusing on the boy who stood against the encroaching darkness, still tethered by its grasp but fighting valiantly. "Help me break free. Remember us." The words erupted from her with urgency, empowering them both against the tide of despair that threatened to wash them away. Jake's eyes flickered, a glimmer of recognition awakening behind the semblance of lifelessness. "I want to go home, Mom," he muttered, a spark igniting within him. And with that simple phrase, the shadows recoiled, momentarily disrupted by the truth held within their bond. The darkness roared, furious at their defiance, the sounds swirling like a tempest, echoing heartfelt cries for family, distorted laughter, and ominous whispers blended together in a cacophony that threatened to drown out their voices. "Join us!" The shadows clamored in unison, twisting around Emily like coiling serpents, desperate to pull her down into their abyss. "No!" she screamed, the word ripping from her throat as she unleashed a rush of energy drawn from the deepest well of her devotion. The room convulsed. Shadows shrieked, bending and contorting as the air pulsated with light until a definitive crack split through the oppressive gloom. In that moment, the shadows lost their foothold, recoiling and swirling like leaves caught in a tempest. Emily surged forward, reaching for Jake. "Together, Jake. You are my son. You are not one of them." Her words filled the churning space with a warmth that resonated through the void. As if struck by a lightning bolt of realization, Jake blinked rapidly, and the familiar spark of his essence radiated from him, a beacon of hope cutting through despair. "Mom!" he beamed, the grin spreading across his face, exposing the innocence that had been grasped so mercilessly by darkness. The shadows writhed, sensing the energy flow shield wrapping around them. With a frantic pulse of desperation, they lashed out, unwilling to relinquish their hold on Jake. "You cannot escape!" they howled, a chorus of anger mixed with deep-rooted ache. "This is your fate." "There's no fate without love," Emily shouted defiantly, pulling strength from the bond anchoring her to Jake. Their hands met as the barrier of darkness shattered under the combined power of their defiance. In a blinding flash, the room exploded into light. Where there had been anguish and shadows, now there lay clarity. Emily blinked against the brightness, the tendrils of darkness dissipating like smoke before the dawn. As she turned, an ethereal warmth enveloped her and Jake, pulling them closer, threading together the fragments of their existence. She could feel the pulse of purity, the heartbeats of every soul they had once saved collectively echoing through time. "Are we?" Jake whispered, wide-eyed and innocent once more. Together, they took a tentative step forward, finding the way that led them toward the door, the path home, away from the stored darkness that had sought to consume them. With each stride, the comforting embrace of their memories flooded back, happiness blooming like flowers, bright against the bleak backdrop of what they had faced. As they exited the door, the light wrapped around them, illuminating their way back to the Maplewood they knew. The shadows faded into nothingness, whispered curses under their breath, and were no more than remnants of a nightmare that had pushed too far. Emily felt a glowing relief as the scent of fresh bread wafted through the air, intermingling with warmth and the light of fresh beginnings. Jake turned to her, his youthful spirit radiated with honesty. "We're home, Mom. We did it." "Yes, we did." Emily embraced him fiercely, a testament of their triumph against the darkness. Tears of relief streamed down her cheeks. The corner store no longer stirred with sinister whispers, it simply stood with the promise of new dreams yet to unfold. Looking back one final time at the familiar yet transformed store, Emily sent a silent prayer of gratitude to the strength they had found within and vowed never to let doubt consume them again. For they were more than just shadows, they were marked by love, forever untouched by the darkness that had nearly claimed them. With the ink of their story still wet and the warmth of victory wrapping around them, they crossed the threshold, hand in hand, eager to chart a new future awash in light. As they embraced the day, Emily knew without a doubt, family was their true sanctuary, one that no darkness could ever invade. Now, before you go on with your day, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the good content coming. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Join our family, and let us keep this journey alive together.